Sophia thought embarrassing me in front of a random cook would hurt. What she didn't know was that the random cook owned 5 Michelin-starred restaurants across 3 continents, and was about to be revealed on live television in exactly 10 minutes. I checked my watch, smiled, and waited for her world to crumble. My ex-girlfriend Sophia had always been beautiful, confident, and unfortunately, completely vindictive when things didn't go her way. We'd been broken up for 6 months after I discovered she'd been using me as her personal ATM while secretly dating Ryan, my former business partner. The breakup was messy. She'd cried, begged, and when that didn't work, she'd turned vicious. Social media posts painting me as controlling, text messages to my friends claiming I was emotionally abusive, even showing up at my workplace causing scenes. I'd handled it all quietly, moved on, focused on my work. But Sophia couldn't let go. Not because she loved me, but because I'd been the one to end things. In her mind, she was supposed to be the one in control, the one who decided when relationships lived or died. My walking away had shattered her carefully constructed self-image, and she'd spent the last 6 months trying to prove she'd upgraded, that leaving me was actually her idea, that she was happier without me. Tonight was supposed to be her ultimate victory. She'd heard through mutual friends that I'd be attending the opening night of Riverside Bistro, a new upscale restaurant downtown. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just attending. I was one of the investors, and I'd personally invited Alessandro Chen, one of the world's most celebrated but camera-shy chefs, to oversee the kitchen for opening week. Alessandro was a legend in culinary circles but deliberately avoided publicity, refusing interviews and keeping his appearance private. Most people had no idea what he looked like. Sophia had arrived with Ryan and her new friend group, a collection of social climbers and trust fund kids she'd assembled to replace the boring friends we'd had together. She'd spotted me immediately, and I'd watched her eyes light up with that familiar scheming gleam. She'd excused herself from her table and made a show of walking past mine, laughing too loudly, flipping her hair, making sure I noticed her designer dress, and expensive jewelry. Most of which I recognized as gifts from Ryan, who'd stolen enough from our dissolved partnership to afford them. I'd nodded politely and returned to my conversation. That had infuriated her. The old me would have reacted, would have shown jealousy or hurt or anger. This version just didn't care anymore, and nothing enraged Sophia more than being irrelevant. That's when she'd noticed Alessandro stepping out of the kitchen to check on the dining room. He was in simple chef whites, checking orders, talking to servers, looking exactly like any other kitchen staff. And Sophia, in her infinite wisdom and desperate need to hurt me, had seen an opportunity. My relationship with Sophia had started 2 years ago at a charity art auction. I'd been there representing my tech consulting firm, looking to network and maybe acquire some pieces for our new office space. She'd been there with her father, a real estate developer who'd made his fortune during the early 2000s housing boom. Sophia had been studying fashion, merchandising, working part-time at a boutique gallery, and she'd been absolutely stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my first car. We'd both reached for the bidding paddle on the same sculpture, a modern piece by an up-and-coming artist. Our hands had touched, we'd laughed, and I'd graciously let her win the bid. She'd thanked me by offering to buy me a drink, and we'd spent the rest of the evening talking. She was charming, cultured, well-traveled, and she'd seemed genuinely interested in my work. I'd been building my consulting firm for 3 years at that point, finally starting to see real success, but I was so focused on work that my social life had suffered. Sophia had felt like a breath of fresh air. The first few months were incredible. She'd introduced me to art galleries, wine tastings, cultural events I'd never have attended on my own. I'd introduced her to hiking, cooking together at home, quiet weekends away from the city. She'd claimed to love how grounded I was, how I wasn't obsessed with status and appearances like the men in her usual social circle. I'd loved how she pushed me out of my comfort zone, made me experience new things, brought spontaneity to my structured life. But looking back now, I could see the cracks that had been there from the beginning. Sophia had loved the idea of dating someone successful, but she'd never actually respected what I did. My work was boring to her. My friends were too normal. My hobbies were basic. She'd tolerated these things at first because I'd been generous, because dating me had given her a certain credibility. An image of being down to earth and not just another rich kid coasting on family money. The problems had really started when Ryan joined my company. I'd known Ryan from university, a brilliant strategist with a charismatic personality that made clients love him. Bringing him on as a partner had seemed like a perfect move for the business. He'd handled client relations and business development while I'd focused on the technical side and operations. We'd been a great team, at least professionally. Sophia had liked Ryan immediately. He was everything I wasn't: flashy, social, always knowing the right things to say. He wore expensive suits, drove a luxury car he couldn't really afford, knew all the trendy restaurants and exclusive clubs. He was also single, charming, and had no qualms about bending the truth to make himself look good. Sophia had started suggesting we hang out with Ryan more, that we double date when he was seeing someone, that we invite him to events and trips. I hadn't thought much of it at first. Ryan was my business partner and friend. It seemed natural that he'd be part of our social circle. But then I'd started noticing little things. The way Sophia would dress up more when she knew Ryan would be around. How she'd laugh just a bit too hard at his jokes. The way she'd find excuses to text him about random things, asking his opinion on restaurants or events, things she'd normally just decide on her own or ask me about. When I'd mentioned it bothered me, she'd turned it around. I was being insecure. I was being controlling. Ryan was just a friend, and if I couldn't handle her having male friends, that said more about my issues than anything she was doing. She'd made me feel guilty for noticing, like I was being the unreasonable one. So I'd backed off, told myself I was overreacting, tried to be the understanding boyfriend she claimed she needed. The business had been growing rapidly. Ryan had brought in several major clients, and we'd been discussing expansion. That meant long hours, stressful negotiations, and less time for Sophia. She'd complained constantly. I was always working. I never made time for her. I was boring and obsessed with money. Never mind that my working was funding the lifestyle she loved, the nice dinners and weekend trips and expensive gifts she'd come to expect. Then had come the trip that changed everything. A potential client in Singapore wanted to meet in person to discuss a major contract. It was a 2-week trip, potentially worth millions to the company. Ryan had convinced me he should go alone, that I was needed back home to manage operations and handle our existing clients. It had made sense. Ryan was better at schmoozing clients anyway, and I'd trusted him completely. Sophia had been upset about me canceling our planned vacation to Colorado so Ryan could take this trip. We'd fought about it, and she'd accused me of caring more about work than her. To smooth things over, I'd surprised her with a weekend spa getaway at a luxury resort upstate, all expenses paid, hoping it would make up for the canceled vacation. She'd seemed happy, had kissed me and thanked me and said she understood I was working hard for our future. I'd thrown myself into work that week, managing client projects and handling the operations side while Ryan was abroad. I'd been staying late at the office, sometimes until midnight, making sure everything ran smoothly. On Thursday night, I'd realized I'd left an important file at home. It was almost 11 at night, but I'd needed it for a morning meeting. So I'd driven back to my apartment. That's when I'd found them. Sophia and Ryan. In my apartment. In my bed. Wearing the matching silk robes I'd bought for Sophia and myself as an anniversary gift. The spa weekend had been a lie. She'd never gone. She'd spent it with Ryan instead. In my home, probably laughing about what an idiot I was. The shock had been so complete, so absolute, that I'd just stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Ryan had at least had the decency to look ashamed. Sophia had just looked annoyed at being caught. The words that came out of her mouth next had cemented everything. If you'd been paying attention instead of obsessing over work, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Ryan actually makes time for me. He makes me feel special. No apology. No remorse. Just blame. It was my fault for working too hard. My fault for not being exciting enough. My fault for trusting them. I'd walked out without a word, went to a hotel, and spent the night staring at the ceiling. By morning, I'd made my decisions. I'd called my lawyer about Ryan, began the process of removing him from the company and auditing our finances. I'd called a different lawyer about getting a restraining order ready if needed. And I'd sent Sophia a single text message stating we were done, please collect your things from my apartment within 3 days or they'd be donated. The aftermath had been ugly. Ryan had tried to deny everything, then blame me for being a neglectful friend and partner. Then threaten legal action. The financial audit had revealed he'd been embezzling, skimming money from client accounts and falsifying expenses. The Singapore trip had been fake. There was no client. He'd taken company money for a personal vacation. I'd handed everything to my lawyer and let the legal system handle it. Sophia had been worse. She'd shown up at my office, crying, at my apartment begging, leaving hundreds of messages claiming it had been a mistake, that Ryan had manipulated her, that she loved me and only me. When I'd refused to engage, she'd turned vicious. The social media posts had started, painting me as a terrible boyfriend who'd neglected her and driven her into someone else's arms. She'd told mutual friends I'd been emotionally abusive, controlling, that she'd been afraid of me. None of it was true, but she'd been convincing, and I'd lost some friends who'd believed her version of events. I'd stayed quiet through all of it. Hadn't defended myself publicly, hadn't engaged with her posts or messages. I'd simply blocked her everywhere and moved on with my life. The business had actually thrived without Ryan's toxic influence. I'd promoted a junior team member who'd been far more honest and hardworking, and we'd grown faster than ever. But Sophia hadn't moved on. Even 6 months later, she was still trying to prove something, still trying to hurt me, still needing to win some imaginary competition. She couldn't stand that I'd walked away and been fine, that I'd actually been better off without her. I watched Sophia approach Alessandro with that predatory smile she used when she wanted to manipulate someone. Alessandro was focused on a tablet showing kitchen orders, completely unaware he was about to become a prop in Sophia's sad little revenge fantasy. Ryan was recording on his phone, probably planning to post whatever was about to happen on social media. Deborah, one of Sophia's newer friends and possibly the worst influence in an already toxic friend group, was giggling and whispering with the others at their table. Sophia tapped Alessandro on the shoulder. He looked up, polite but busy, clearly wanting to get back to work. I was close enough to hear her launch into her performance. "Excuse me, hi. I just wanted to say the food tonight has been absolutely incredible. Like, seriously, the best meal I've had in months." Her voice was loud enough to carry, making sure I could hear. Alessandro smiled professionally and thanked her. "You're so talented," she continued, touching his arm in that familiar flirtatious way. "I'm Sophia, by the way. I'm kind of a foodie, I love discovering new culinary talent. There's something so attractive about a man who's passionate about his craft, you know? Not like these boring corporate guys who just care about money and status." That last part was delivered with a pointed glance in my direction. Alessandro, bless him, had no idea he was being used as a weapon. He just nodded politely, trying to extract himself from the conversation. But Sophia wasn't done. "You know what? I'd love to get your number. Maybe you could cook for me sometime, something private and special. I really appreciate artists, people who create things with their hands, people with real passion." She was laying it on thick, playing up every stereotype of the starving artist versus the soulless businessman. It was such obvious bait, so desperately performative. The old me would have reacted, would have felt that jealous anger she was trying to provoke. Current me just felt embarrassed for her. Alessandro looked uncomfortable now, clearly recognizing this was about more than just complimenting the food. "I appreciate the kind words, miss, but I'm quite busy tonight. Please enjoy your meal." He tried to move away, but Sophia blocked his path. "Oh, come on, don't be shy. I'm not like other customers. I really understand food culture. In fact, my ex over there." She gestured dramatically toward me. "He never appreciated fine dining. He'd rather eat microwave meals and work constantly than experience real culinary art. But I can tell you're different. You're creative, passionate, real." Ryan had moved closer with his phone, capturing every moment. Deborah and the others were watching like this was the entertainment portion of their evening. Other diners were starting to notice, some looking annoyed at the disruption, others curious about the drama unfolding. Alessandro's expression had shifted from polite confusion to controlled irritation. "Miss, I really need to get back to the kitchen. Please excuse me." "What's wrong?" Sophia's voice took on that sharp edge I knew so well, the one that appeared when things didn't go her way. "You're just a cook, right? I'm offering you a huge opportunity here. Do you know who I am? My father owns half the real estate downtown. Dating me could really help someone in your position. Don't you want to improve your situation?" The classism was stunning, even for Sophia. She was so focused on her performance, on trying to make me jealous by flirting with someone she perceived as beneath her usual standards, that she'd revealed exactly what she thought of working people. The irony was that Alessandro probably had more money than her father. Alessandro's jaw tightened. "I'm not interested. Please step aside." "Oh, I get it." Sophia's laugh was cruel now, playing to her audience. "You're intimidated. That makes sense. I mean, look at you in your kitchen uniform, and look at me. Different worlds, right? But that's what I like. I'm not a snob like some people." Another pointed look at me. I checked my watch. 7 more minutes until the television segment started broadcasting. The restaurant had screens throughout showing a local lifestyle program, and tonight's episode was featuring Alessandro as the mystery guest chef at Riverside Bistro's grand opening. It was meant to be a surprise for diners, a ratings boost for the show, and publicity for the restaurant. Alessandro had reluctantly agreed, only because I'd convinced him it would help the restaurant succeed. "Sophia." I finally spoke up, my voice calm. She spun around, triumphant smile already forming. This was what she'd wanted all along, for me to react, to show I cared. You should probably get back to your table. Your food's getting cold. Jealous, John? She sauntered closer, making sure everyone could hear. You can't stand seeing me talk to another man, can you? Especially one who's actually passionate about something other than spreadsheets and profit margins. It's okay, I understand. You never could handle seeing me happy. Ryan joined her, slinging an arm around her shoulders in a possessive gesture. Come on, man, it's been 6 months. You need to move on. Sophia's with me now, and she's just being friendly to the staff. Don't make a scene. The audacity of Ryan, who'd stolen from my company and slept with my girlfriend in my own bed, telling me not to make a scene. It was almost impressive. I'm not making a scene, I said evenly. I'm just suggesting Sophia might want to save herself some embarrassment in about. I checked my watch again. 6 minutes. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She hated when she couldn't read me, when I didn't react the way she wanted. Embarrassment. The only embarrassing thing here is you sitting alone while I'm having the time of my life. But sure. Keep pretending you're over me. We all know you're miserable. Deborah chimed in from their table, emboldened by wine and groupthink. Sophia, ignore him. Come back. Let's take pictures. Your dress looks amazing tonight. Very elegant, very demure. She laughed at her own use of the trending phrase. Alessandro had managed to step away during the confrontation, returning to the kitchen. Sophia looked frustrated that her prop had escaped but recovered quickly. You know what, John? I actually feel sorry for you. You're so uptight, so boring, so unable to just let loose and have fun. That's why I'm with Ryan now. He knows how to live. Ryan, who was currently out on bail and facing embezzlement charges. Ryan, who was probably months away from prison time. Ryan, whose fancy car and expensive lifestyle were funded by stolen money and credit cards he'd maxed out. That Ryan. I hope you're both very happy, I said, meaning it. The sooner Sophia moved on completely, the sooner she'd stop these pathetic attempts at making me jealous. Now if you'll excuse me, I think the program's about to start. I gestured to the nearest screen, where the lifestyle show's opening credits were beginning. Sophia glanced at it dismissively. Oh please, like I care about some boring TV show. Come on, Ryan, Deborah, let's go somewhere actually fun. This place is dead anyway. She started to leave, her little entourage gathering their things. Perfect timing, I thought. They'd be walking out right as the reveal happened. Sometimes, the universe really does have a sense of humor. As Sophia and her group moved toward the exit, the television program's host appeared on screens throughout the restaurant, her enthusiastic voice carrying through the dining room. Welcome back to City Taste, where we discover the culinary talents shaping our local food scene. Tonight, we have something incredibly special. We're broadcasting live from the grand opening of Riverside Bistro. And we have exclusive access to a chef who rarely grants interviews, a culinary genius who's earned 5 Michelin stars across 3 continents, who's cooked for royalty and celebrities but refuses to seek spotlight. Sophia had stopped near the door, Deborah pulling at her arm and whispering something. Ryan was still on his phone, probably editing the video he'd taken. None of them were paying attention to the screens yet, but other diners had started watching with interest. I felt a strange calm settle over me. For months after the breakup, I'd struggled with conflicting emotions. Anger at being betrayed. Hurt at having my trust violated so completely. Confusion about what I'd missed, what signs I'd ignored. Sophia's smear campaign had added humiliation to the mix, watching people I'd considered friends believe her lies without even asking for my side. I'd gone through the classic stages, denial first, those few hours between leaving my apartment and accepting it was real. Bargaining came next, late-night thoughts about what I could have done differently, if I'd been more attentive or more exciting or less focused on work. Then anger, hot and consuming, making me want to expose them both publicly. To fight back against the lies and manipulation. But I'd had a good therapist, someone who'd helped me work through the emotions without letting them control me. Dr. Martinez had been invaluable during those first few months. She'd helped me understand that Sophia's betrayal wasn't about my failings. It was about her character, her choices, her inability to communicate or end things honestly. People who truly love you don't cheat when you're busy. Dr. Martinez had said during one session. They don't blame you for their choices. A relationship requires 2 people committed to working through difficulties, and it sounds like you were the only one truly committed. She'd also warned me about Sophia's likely behavior post-breakup. Someone who lacks accountability won't suddenly develop it when you leave. She'll probably continue trying to provoke reactions from you, because in her mind, your emotional response equals power. When you stop reacting, you take away that power. And she'll escalate trying to get it back. Dr. Martinez had been exactly right. The social media posts had been the first escalation. When I didn't respond to those, Sophia had started showing up places she knew I'd be, always with Ryan, always making a show of how happy she was. When I'd remained polite but distant, she'd spread more elaborate lies to mutual friends. And tonight was just the latest escalation, trying to make me jealous by flirting with a random cook in front of me. What Sophia didn't understand was that I'd reached genuine acceptance, not the bitter kind where you pretend to be over someone while secretly hoping they fail. Not the resentful kind where you've moved on but still carry anger. Actual acceptance, where I could honestly say I was better off, where I felt grateful the relationship had ended before we'd gotten more seriously entangled. The business was thriving. I'd discovered I actually enjoyed the client relations side once I wasn't constantly worried about what Ryan was doing. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the relationship, people Sophia had found too boring but who were actually loyal and genuine. I'd started rock climbing, joined a book club, adopted a dog from a rescue shelter. My life was fuller now, richer in ways that had nothing to do with money or status. I'd even started dating again, nothing serious yet. But I'd met interesting women who had their own careers and passions, who didn't need me to fund their lifestyles or validate their existence. One woman, Jennifer, worked as an environmental lawyer and spent weekends volunteering at wildlife sanctuaries. Another, Keiko, was a graphic novelist whose work explored themes of identity and cultural heritage. They were accomplished, independent, secure in themselves. Such a contrast to Sophia's constant need for attention and validation. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't still a small part of me that wanted Sophia to understand what she'd thrown away, to recognize that her version of events was delusional. Not because I wanted her back. That ship had sailed the moment I'd found her with Ryan, but because she'd tried so hard to paint me as the villain, and some tiny ego-driven part of me wanted vindication. Tonight was going to provide that vindication, though I hadn't planned it this way. I genuinely just invested in the restaurant because I believed in the concept and knew Alessandro would make it successful. His presence tonight was about business, about giving the opening night prestige and publicity. Sophia's desperate performance had been entirely her own choice, her own miscalculation. The television host continued her build-up. Chef Alessandro Chen has trained under masters in Hong Kong, Paris, Tokyo, and New York. His restaurants have been featured in every major culinary publication, his techniques studied in cooking schools worldwide. But tonight, he's chosen to bring his expertise to our city, to help launch what promises to be the most exciting restaurant opening of the year. Some diners were murmuring now, recognizing the name. Alessandro Chen wasn't quite a household name like some celebrity chefs, but anyone who followed fine dining knew exactly who he was. His Hong Kong restaurant had a 6-month waiting list. His Paris location had been called the best Asian fusion cuisine in Europe. His New York spot had presidents and celebrities begging for reservations. I saw the moment Sophia registered the name. She'd frozen near the door, her face going pale. She spun back toward the dining room, eyes finding the screen, then darting to the kitchen area where Alessandro had disappeared earlier. Deborah was pulling up something on her phone, probably Googling Alessandro's name. Ryan had lowered his phone, confusion crossing his face. "No way," I heard Deborah say, her voice carrying in the suddenly quiet restaurant. "Sophia. Oh my God, you did not just try to pick up Alessandro Chen." The television screen switched to footage from inside the kitchen, showing Alessandro directing his team with calm precision. The host's voice overlaid the footage. Chef Chen has chosen Riverside Bistro for his first major American project outside of New York, drawn by the restaurant's commitment to locally sourced ingredients and sustainable practices. Tonight, he's personally overseeing the kitchen for this exclusive grand opening, treating diners to his signature modern Asian cuisine. Sophia's hand had come up to cover her mouth. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide how red her face had gotten. Other diners were starting to put pieces together, glancing between Sophia's frozen group and the kitchen, some whispering behind hands. The host appeared on screen standing outside the restaurant. "We're about to go inside and speak with Chef Chen himself, getting insight into his creative process, and what diners can expect from this exciting new venture. But first, let me tell you a bit about the restaurant's ownership and vision." This was the part I hadn't expected. I'd known about Alessandro's segment but didn't realize they'd be covering the restaurant's business side as well. The screen showed exterior shots of the restaurant's elegant facade, the carefully designed interior spaces. Riverside Bistro is the passion project of local tech entrepreneur John Mitchell, who made headlines last year with his company's successful expansion and his quiet philanthropic work with culinary education programs. My own face appeared on screen. Some professional photo from a business publication, Mitchell personally recruited Chef Chen for this project, promising complete creative control and a commitment to the highest standards. It's a partnership that's already generating buzz in culinary circles nationwide. Oh, no. This was going to be so much worse for Sophia than I'd anticipated. The television segment continued, but I couldn't focus on it anymore. I was watching Sophia's face cycle through emotions. Shock. Embarrassment. Recognition. Horror. The realization of what she'd just done. Who she'd just condescended to, and who'd witnessed it all. Sophia turned from the television screen to look at me, and for the first time since our breakup, I saw something other than calculation or performance in her expression. It was genuine mortification, the kind that comes from realizing you've humiliated yourself in front of dozens of people, and it's been partially captured on video by your own boyfriend. Ryan, bless his criminal heart, tried to salvage the situation. Babe, come on, let's just go. Who cares about some chef? We were leaving anyway. But Sophia wasn't moving. She was rooted to the spot, watching the screen where Alessandro was now being interviewed by the program's host. He spoke eloquently about his culinary philosophy, his choice to work with Riverside Bistro, his respect for local ingredients and traditional techniques merged with modern innovation. He was articulate, passionate, and clearly a man at the top of his field. Nothing like the intimidated cook Sophia had imagined she was condescending to. Deborah had her phone out, frantically scrolling. His Hong Kong restaurant costs like $400 a person just for the tasting menu. He's worth over $50 million. Sophia, you literally told a multimillionaire celebrity chef that dating you would improve his situation. Oh my God, someone filmed it. That got Ryan's attention. What? Who filmed it? Everyone. Look. Deborah turned her phone to show them. Sure enough, several other diners had caught Sophia's performance on their phones. In the age of social media, a beautiful woman loudly condescending to a restaurant worker was exactly the kind of content that would go viral, especially when that worker turned out to be a famous chef. Sophia snatched the phone from Deborah, watching in horror as a video replayed her words. You're just a cook, right? I'm offering you a huge opportunity here. Do you know who I am? My father owns half the real estate downtown. Dating me could really help someone in your position. The video had already been posted, with a caption asking if anyone knew who the chef was, speculating he handled her rejection with impressive grace. Comments were rolling in. People recognizing Alessandro. Others criticizing Sophia's tone and attitude. The video had been posted less than 3 minutes ago and already had thousands of views. Delete it. Sophia hissed at Deborah. Tell them to delete it. I can't delete other people's posts, Sophia. And honestly, maybe you shouldn't have been so. So what? Sophia's voice rose sharply. So friendly. So confident. How was I supposed to know he was famous? He was dressed like regular kitchen staff. You shouldn't have treated regular kitchen staff that way either. Someone said from a nearby table. A woman in her 50s, elegant in simple but expensive clothing, had been watching the entire drama unfold. That young man was working, and you harassed him, belittled his profession, and made a spectacle of yourself trying to make your ex jealous. Frankly, dear, you embarrassed yourself regardless of who the chef turned out to be. Her companion, a distinguished-looking man about the same age, nodded agreement. My daughter works in food service while getting her degree. The way you spoke to that chef is exactly the kind of disrespect she deals with constantly from people who think serving jobs are beneath them. Not very becoming behavior. Sophia looked like she wanted to argue, but for once seemed to recognize she had no defense. Ryan pulled at her arm again. Seriously, we need to leave. This is turning into a thing. But Sophia had turned back to me, and I saw the calculation returning to her eyes. If she couldn't undo what happened, she'd try to spin it, to make it somehow my fault. I'd seen this pattern before. Knew exactly what was coming. You set me up. Her voice started quiet but built in volume, drawing even more attention. You knew who he was. You knew I'd try to talk to him. You orchestrated this whole thing to humiliate me. The logic was impressively twisted even for Sophia. Somehow my investing in a restaurant, hiring a talented chef, and sitting quietly at my own table had become an elaborate scheme to make her look bad. The fact that she'd approached Alessandro entirely on her own initiative, said everything herself, performed for her own ego didn't factor into her version of events. Sophia, I was sitting here eating dinner. You approached the chef on your own. You said those things on your own. I didn't make you do anything. I kept my voice level, aware that phones were still recording, that anything I said might end up online. But you knew. You invested in this restaurant, you brought him here, you must have known I'd be here tonight. This was revenge for me posting about being happy with Ryan. You couldn't stand seeing me moved on, so you created this situation to embarrass me. The mental gymnastics required to believe this narrative were Olympic level. Half the restaurant was watching now, Alessandro's television interview playing in the background while real-life drama unfolded in the dining room. Ryan, showing slightly more sense than Sophia, tried again to get her to leave. Babe, seriously, let's just go. You're making it worse. No. Sophia shook off his hand, advancing on my table. No, I'm done letting him make me look bad. I'm done with his mind games and his manipulations. Everyone thinks John's so nice, so mature, so professional. But I know the truth. He's vindictive and controlling, and this proves it. I remained seated, which only seemed to make her angrier. She wanted a fight, wanted me to escalate so she could play the victim. But I'd learned that lesson already. Engaging with Sophia's reality distortions just gave her ammunition. I didn't know you'd be here tonight. I said calmly. I didn't know you'd approach the chef. I definitely didn't make you say the things you said. I'm sorry you're embarrassed, but that's a consequence of your own actions. My own actions? You sat there smiling while I talked to him. You didn't say anything. You let me think he was just some random cook. You didn't ask. And even if you had, I'm not responsible for managing your social interactions. You're an adult, Sophia. You made choices based on assumptions. Those assumptions were wrong. That's not my fault. The older woman who'd spoken earlier made a sound of agreement. Ryan had given up trying to pull Sophia away and was now on his phone, probably trying to do damage control on social media. Deborah and the rest of their group looked uncomfortable, clearly wanting to leave but not wanting to abandon Sophia in the middle of her meltdown. The television program had moved to commercial break, which meant Alessandro would probably be returning to the dining room soon. I really didn't want him to walk into this mess. He'd been uncomfortable enough during Sophia's first approach. Having to navigate her current breakdown would be worse. Sophia. I stood up, keeping the table between us. I think you should leave. You're causing a scene, you're disturbing other diners, and you're not making anything better for yourself. Please just go. Don't tell me what to do. You don't get to control me anymore. I'm not trying to control you. I'm pointing out that you're escalating a situation you created, and it's not going to end well for you. The videos are already online. The more you argue, the worse it looks. That penetrated somehow. Sophia glanced around the restaurant, seeming to really see for the first time how many people were watching, how many phones were pointed in her direction. The reality of the situation finally hit her, and I watched her face crumble. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. Despite everything, I didn't enjoy seeing anyone humiliate themselves like this. But I also knew Sophia well enough to recognize that any sympathy I showed would be twisted into encouragement, into proof that I still cared, into ammunition for future manipulations. Alessandro chose that moment to emerge from the kitchen, accompanied by the television crew. The program's host was asking him questions, camera following, capturing his responses for the live broadcast. He spotted the commotion near the door, saw Sophia's tear-streaked face and my standing position, and his expression tightened. To his credit, he kept his professional composure, finishing his answer to the host's question before politely excusing himself and approaching us. The camera didn't follow, but dozens of personal phones certainly did. Is everything all right here? Alessandro directed the question to me, not Sophia, which probably stung. Everything's fine, chef. My apologies for the disturbance. These guests were just leaving. I emphasized the word guests, making it clear I had no personal connection to Sophia's group. Alessandro nodded, then surprised me by addressing Sophia directly. Miss, I want to clarify something. Earlier, when you approached me, I was uncomfortable not because of your interest but because of your tone. The way you spoke suggested you viewed kitchen workers as beneath you, as people whose situations needed improving through association with you. That attitude is disrespectful to everyone in the service industry, regardless of their titles or net worth. Sophia opened her mouth, but Alessandro continued. I've worked every position in restaurants. I started as a dishwasher when I was 14. My mother was a line cook. My father a server. Some of the most skilled, talented, hardworking people I know work in kitchens, and they deserve respect for their craft, not condescension. Whether I'm a famous chef or an unknown cook shouldn't change how you treat people. It was a gentle but devastating call out, delivered with calm dignity. Sophia looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Ryan had backed away slightly, apparently deciding this wasn't a battle he wanted to fight. Deborah was recording Alessandro's words, probably recognizing this was content gold. I apologize if I offended you. Sophia managed, her voice small. I didn't mean I was just. You were trying to make your ex-boyfriend jealous by flirting with someone you perceived as having lower status, Alessandro said, not unkindly but matter of fact. It didn't work, and now you're embarrassed. I understand. But perhaps this is an opportunity to reflect on why you thought that strategy would work, and what it says about how you view both your ex and service workers. The man was a better person than me. He'd taken Sophia's performance, her condescension, her attempt to use him as a prop, and turned it into a teaching moment. Part of me was impressed. Part of me thought he was being too generous. Sophia had no response. For maybe the first time since I'd known her, she was completely speechless. The tears on her face were real now, not the performative crying she'd used during our breakup but genuine shame and mortification. Ryan finally found his voice. Look, man, she said she was sorry. Can we just drop this? You've made your point. Alessandro turned to Ryan with an expression of mild distaste. And you are? Her boyfriend. And I think you're being pretty harsh over a simple mistake. I'm being honest about disrespectful behavior. If you consider that harsh, perhaps you should examine your own standards. Alessandro glanced at me. John, again, my apologies for this disrupting your evening. I hope you're enjoying the meal. The casual use of my first name, the implication of our existing relationship, registered with everyone watching. Sophia's eyes widened as another piece clicked into place. Not only had she condescended to a famous chef, but she'd done it in a restaurant I owned, in front of me, while trying to make me jealous. The layers of irony were almost poetic. The meal has been excellent, as expected, I said. Thank you for everything you're doing for this opening. Alessandro nodded and returned to the television crew, leaving us in awkward silence. The other diners were starting to return to their conversations, the immediate drama having passed. But Sophia and her group remained frozen near the door, clearly unsure how to exit gracefully from a situation that had no graceful exit. Deborah was the first to move, touching Sophia's arm gently. Come on, Soph. Let's go. But Sophia was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Anger, yes. Humiliation, definitely. But something else, too. Maybe. Recognition. Finally, that the person she'd been trying to hurt didn't care anymore. That her weapons had lost their power. You really don't care, do you? She said, not quite a question. All of this, everything I did tonight, and you just don't care. I considered lying, softening it, but decided she deserved honesty. No, Sophia. I don't. I haven't for months. I'm genuinely sorry you embarrassed yourself tonight, but I didn't cause it, and I can't fix it. You need to own your choices and do better. That's not my responsibility anymore. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I loved you, you know. I really did. Maybe you loved the version of me that you could control, that would chase after you and beg for your attention, but you didn't love me, the actual person. If you had, you wouldn't have cheated. You wouldn't have lied. You wouldn't have spent 6 months trying to hurt me. I was angry. You left me. You wouldn't even listen when I tried to explain. There was nothing to explain, Sophia. I came home and found you in bed with my business partner. The why doesn't matter. The fact that it happened was enough. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, apparently not enjoying having his role in the betrayal brought up publicly. Sophia noticed and something in her expression changed, hardened. I recognized that look. She was about to lash out, to say something cruel because she was hurting and wanted to spread the pain around. You know what? You're right. I didn't love you. You were boring and predictable, and being with you was like being suffocated. Ryan made me feel alive. And yes, I did it in your apartment, in your bed, because I wanted to take something from you the way you took everything from me. There it was. The truth she'd been holding back. Waiting for the right moment to deploy as a weapon. The calculated cruelty designed to wound. But I'd already grieved this relationship. Her words had no power anymore. What did I take from you, Sophia? She blinked, thrown by my calm response. You took my time. 3 years I gave you. You took my youth, my best years. I took nothing. You chose to be in that relationship. You could have left any time. Instead, you stayed, you cheated, and you blamed me for your choices. That's not me taking from you. That's you refusing to take responsibility for your own life. Her face flushed red. You think you're so mature, so evolved, but you're just cold, John. You're emotionally unavailable, and that's why I looked elsewhere. Any woman would have done the same. Any woman with your character. Maybe. Plenty of people manage to communicate their unhappiness without cheating. You weren't unhappy enough to leave. But you were unhappy enough to betray. That says everything about you and nothing about me. I saw her hand twitch. And for a second I thought she might actually try to hit me. Ryan must have thought so too because he grabbed her arm. Sophia, stop. You're just making it worse. Everyone's still recording. She wrenched her arm free but seemed to deflate, the fight going out of her. I hate you, she whispered. I hate that you're fine. I hate that you moved on. I hate that nothing I do bothers you anymore. I know, I said softly. But that's something you need to work through, not something I can help with. We're done, Sophia. We've been done. Tonight didn't change that. Please move on with your life and let me live mine. Sophia left without another word, Ryan and Deborah flanking her as they pushed through the door into the night. The rest of their group followed quickly, probably eager to escape the second-hand embarrassment. The restaurant seemed to exhale collectively, conversations resuming at normal volume, the tension dissipating. I sat back down at my table, suddenly exhausted. The older couple who'd spoken earlier caught my eye, the woman giving me a sympathetic smile and a small nod of approval. A few other diners looked my way with expressions ranging from curiosity to pity to amusement. My phone buzzed with notifications. Messages from friends who'd apparently already seen the videos circulating online. Most were supportive. Some were gleeful about Sophia's comeuppance, a few were checking if I was okay. I'd respond later. Right now, I just wanted to finish my dinner in peace. Alessandro appeared at my table a few minutes later, sliding into the empty chair across from me. I'm sorry about that. If I'd known she was your ex, I would have handled it differently. You handled it perfectly. Thank you for what you said to her. Maybe it'll actually sink in. He shrugged. Probably not. People like that rarely change. But I meant what I said about respecting service workers. That attitude she displayed, it's everywhere in this industry. Gets under my skin. I know. And for what it's worth, I never told her about my investment in the restaurant or your involvement. I didn't know she'd be here tonight. I believe you. That level of setup would require more effort than she's worth. Alessandro smiled slightly. The meal's on the house tonight. By the way. Least I can do after you witnessed that. Absolutely not. I'm an investor. I pay full price. That's the rule. Stubborn as always. He stood, clapping me on the shoulder. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And John. You clearly made the right choice leaving her. Anyone who treats people the way she did isn't worth your time. After he left, I did finish my meal. The food was extraordinary, every course demonstrating why Alessandro had earned his reputation. The restaurant would be a massive success, I was certain. Already I could see the buzz in the room. Hear diners praising the food. See them taking pictures to share on social media. The personal drama would blow over eventually. These things always did. Some people would remember me as the guy whose ex embarrassed herself trying to make him jealous. Some would only remember the videos of Sophia condescending to a famous chef. Most would forget entirely within a week, moving on to the next viral moment. What mattered was that I'd remained calm, hadn't taken her bait, hadn't let her drag me back into her chaos. That was growth. That was proof I'd actually moved on, not just claimed to. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jennifer, the environmental lawyer I'd been on a few dates with. Just saw the video. Are you okay? That looked intense. I smiled and typed back. I'm fine. It was awkward but I'm just glad it's over. Are you free this weekend? There's a new hiking trail I wanted to check out. Definitely. Saturday morning. I'll bring snacks. It's a date. Simple. Easy. No drama, no games, just two people making plans because they enjoyed each other's company. This was what healthy looked like. This was what I deserved. I paid my bill, left a generous tip for the server who'd navigated the evening's drama with admirable professionalism, and headed out. The autumn air was crisp, the city lights reflecting off the river. I'd walked to the restaurant from my apartment, enjoying the evening weather, and decided to walk back. My phone rang as I crossed the bridge. Unknown number. Probably a reporter. Or maybe one of Sophia's friends, calling to yell at me. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. Same number. Against my better judgment, I answered. John. It's Deborah. Her voice was tentative, very different from her earlier giggling commentary. Please don't hang up. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about tonight. About all of it. Sophia has been obsessed with making you jealous for months, and we've all just gone along with it because, honestly, it's easier than dealing with her when she's upset. But tonight was too far. What she did to that chef, and to you, it wasn't okay. I didn't know what to say. Deborah had been one of Sophia's most enthusiastic enablers, always backing her plays, always ready with her phone to document whatever drama unfolded. I know I'm part of the problem. Deborah continued. I thought it was just harmless fun, you know. Like reality TV but with our own lives. But seeing how she talked to that chef, how she tried to humiliate you, and it just bounced off because you genuinely didn't care, I realized how pathetic it all is. We're almost 30, John. We're too old to be playing these high school games. Okay, I said, because what else was there to say? Ryan's not a good guy. I know you know that. But I don't think Sophia does. Or maybe she does and she's just with him because he was the only one who'd help her with her revenge schemes against you. Either way, she's going to get hurt, and it's going to be bad. That's not my problem, Deborah. I know. I'm just saying. And I'm sorry. For tonight. And for the past 6 months. You didn't deserve any of it. She hung up before I could respond. I stood on the bridge for a moment, phone in hand, processing. Maybe Deborah's call was genuine. Maybe it was just her trying to distance herself from Sophia's sinking ship. Either way, it didn't matter. I had no intention of getting pulled back into that world. The next morning, I woke to discover the videos had indeed gone viral. Multiple versions were circulating on different platforms, some with amusing captions, others with critical commentary about classism and how people treat service workers. A few had identified me as the ex-boyfriend, and there was speculation about the backstory. Thankfully, most of the comments were supportive of Alessandro and critical of Sophia. A few accused me of setting her up, echoing her claim, but those were vastly outnumbered by people pointing out that Sophia had approached the chef on her own and said everything herself. There was even a follow-up post from the older woman at the restaurant, who apparently had a popular food blog. She'd written a thoughtful piece about the incident, praising Alessandro's grace under pressure and criticizing the entitled attitude displayed toward service workers. She'd mentioned my calm handling of the situation as well, noting that I'd tried to defuse rather than escalate. The attention was uncomfortable, but it would pass. I focused on work, on my projects, on my life. That weekend, Jennifer and I went hiking. We talked about her latest case, about my restaurant investment, about books we'd been reading and places we wanted to travel. She asked briefly about the viral videos, and I gave her the short version. She listened, said it sounded like I was better off, and then we moved on to other topics. It was refreshing. It was normal. It was what I needed. About 3 weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that Sophia and Ryan had broken up. Apparently, his legal troubles had accelerated, and he'd been desperate for money. He'd asked Sophia to ask her father for help, which she'd refused. They'd fought, he'd said some cruel things about only dating her to get back at me, and she'd kicked him out. I felt nothing, hearing this news. No satisfaction, no vindication, no pity. Just a mild acknowledgement that people who built relationships on betrayal and revenge tended not to have stable foundations. A month after that, I got an email from Sophia. It was long, rambling, filled with apologies and explanations and justifications. She'd been in therapy, she said. She'd realized she had issues with validation seeking and fear of abandonment that manifested as toxic behaviors. She understood now why I'd left, why I couldn't forgive her. She wasn't asking me to take her back. She just wanted me to know she was sorry, that she was working on herself, that she hoped someday I could forgive her even if we never spoke again. I read the email twice, then saved it to a folder and didn't respond. Maybe she was being genuine. Maybe it was another manipulation. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. My closure hadn't come from her apology. It had come from walking away and building a better life. 6 months later, Riverside Bistro was the hottest reservation in the city. Alessandro had moved on to his next project. But the restaurant maintained its standards, continued earning rave reviews. My investment had tripled in value. More importantly, I'd learned I enjoyed the restaurant business, enjoyed being part of creating spaces where people gathered and made memories. I opened a second restaurant with a different concept. Then a third. Each one successful, each one teaching me something new. Jennifer and I had gotten serious, moved in together, adopted a second rescue dog. My business continued growing. I reconnected with my family, spent more time with my nieces and nephews, coached a youth entrepreneurship program on weekends. Life was full. Life was good. Life was everything it couldn't have been if I'd stayed with Sophia, if I'd believed her lies about who I was and what I deserved. The viral video incident became a funny story I'd tell occasionally, always emphasizing Alessandro's grace, and leaving out most of the painful backstory. The restaurant industry friends found it hilarious. Jennifer thought it was karmic justice. My family was just glad I'd moved on from what my sister called that exhausting situation. And Sophia? I had no idea what she was doing. I'd blocked her on everything, avoided mutual friends who might give updates, actively chose not to know. She was someone I used to know, a chapter that had closed, a lesson learned about recognizing red flags and valuing myself enough to walk away from people who didn't value me. The revenge, if that's what it was, hadn't been planned or orchestrated. It had simply been me living my life, investing in my interests, building my future. Her humiliation had been entirely self-inflicted, the natural consequence of her choices and assumptions. I hadn't needed to do anything except exist and move forward. And that, ultimately, was the best possible outcome. Not because she suffered, but because I didn't. Because I'd found peace, happiness, success, love, everything I'd been seeking in the wrong places with the wrong person. Because I'd learned that the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I'd reached that blessed state of simply not caring anymore. That night at the restaurant, watching her scramble to salvage her dignity, I'd felt the final chains of our relationship break. She'd tried one last time to hurt me, to prove I still cared, to reclaim some power over my emotions, and she'd failed completely, publicly, in a way that left no room for her to try again. It was closure I hadn't known I needed, delivered in the most unexpected way. And for that, I was grateful. Not to Sophia, but to myself, for doing the work to heal, for refusing to engage with her toxicity, for choosing myself when it mattered most. The best revenge, as they say, is living well. I'd done more than live well. I'd thrived. And that made everything else, all the drama and pain and humiliation Sophia had tried to inflict, completely irrelevant.